All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're so thrilled that you all are here with us today. My name is Omar McCrimmon, and I'm with the NIH Office of Extramural Research, and I wanted to officially welcome you all to the 2021 Capacity Building for the Future of Biomedical Research webinar, an official NIH Virtual Seminar pre-conference event, and we'll certainly talk more about the seminar during today's program. So today you can expect to hear how other institutions like yours built up their research capacity. You'll learn about NIH programs that can help support your research capacity efforts. And lastly, you will be able to learn how to navigate common challenges within the grants process. So again, we're super excited that you all are here with us today. And now I'm going to pass it along to my colleague, Rosalina Bray, for additional opening remarks. Rosalina?
Yes, thank you so much, Omar. We're really excited to be here. Once again, we welcome you to today's session. I am the Extramural Staff Training Officer for the National Institutes of Health, and I also work within the Division of Communications and Outreach for the Office of Extramural Research. And it is our pleasure to present and host today's capacity building seminar. Our next segment is going to be Research Capacity Building Success Stories. We have with us today Ms. Anita Frederick, the president of the Tribal Nations Research Group. Also, Dr. Lisa Brown, the director of the Office of Undergraduate Research at Morgan State University, and Carolyn Bohach, the University of Idaho. And so at this time, we're going to move on to Dr. Lisa Brown. Dr. Brown, welcome to today's seminar session.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Lisa Brown, and I'm at Morgan State University. And just a little bit about Morgan State. Morgan State is a historically Black college or university, and it's currently a Carnegie classified high research institution. It's an R2 institution. And we are well on our way towards a trajectory of being an R1 institution. So as such, we have both undergraduate and graduate students engaged in research. However, the number of research opportunities for our undergraduates does not match the number of students who are interested in gaining this experience. So we do have a few undergraduate research training programs such as NIH RISE and LSAMP, but these slots are limited. So in an effort to get more students engaged in research, the Office of Undergraduate Research was created. It's a relatively new office here on our campus. It was created in September of 2021. At that time, I became the director. We also have an associate director. And as with similar offices, the mission of our office is to promote and support a culture of faculty-mentored scientific and creative inquiry within our undergraduate community. We offer high-impact programming, experiential learning, graduate school. Sorry, I'm not sure where I left off, but we offer experiential learning, graduate school career readiness opportunities for all students who wish to enhance their education by engaging in undergraduate research. So what's interesting about our office is that it evolved from our Ascend program. And the Ascend program is supported by the NIH Build initiative. And Ascend stands for a student-centered entrepreneurial development training program. So this model emphasizes critical thinking and an entrepreneurial spirit. So students in this program are trained in the scientific method, and they learn to think and work like scientists. They select their own research topics, develop their own research proposals, have them reviewed by a committee of faculty, and ultimately they receive funding and then are able to engage in hands-on research. So we found that these students who are part of this Ascend program, they have a greater sense of self-science identity, belonging, and they are more committed to research. And they ultimately go on to graduate and enter graduate schools and other pre-professional programs, or become part of the biomedical workforce. So the Office of Undergraduate Research has adopted this entrepreneurial model. Part of our programming includes workshops to help students choose and develop a research topic, proposal writing, and then placing them in a lab on campus where a faculty person can mentor them through the research process. The research does not have to be, and in many cases is not, related to the research of the faculty mentor. While now all students who complete these workshops that our office offers, not all students will get funded. They still gain valuable experience in creating an idea, writing a proposal, and using critical thinking skills. Broader effects of this entrepreneurial model that we've adopted is that students engage in the process, they become more likely to apply for summer internships or other research opportunities, and students are more likely to enroll in courses that enhance their research skills and learn related research techniques in their major. And they also gain a greater sense of science identity. So using this model will allow our office to engage more students across disciplines in various stages of scientific inquiry and hands-on research. So this is the model that's been working for us currently. Our university does support this model. Our president is a big fan of this entrepreneurial model. Our office now has a line on the university budget to support this. And we can apply this model to all majors across the campus. So these workshops are not just for STEM students, although that is a big focus for us, but we can also have students from other disciplines in the liberal arts engage in research as well. So this is one way that we are enhancing our capacity for our students to be more actively engaged in research on our campus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. And now we're going to ask Ms. Carolyn Bohash, Dr. Carolyn Bohash, to come off of mute, share her video, and also share her story.
Well, hi, everyone. I am coming to you from far western state of Idaho, and I'm the director of the Idaho INBRE program. And INBRE, of course, everything at NIH is an acronym. This acronym is an acronym inside an acronym because it stands for the IDEA Network of Biomedical Research Excellence. The thing to remember about that acronym really is only one letter, the N, because we form a network across the state to help build research capacity. I'm going to share a few stories with you of our success. We've been participating in the INBRE program since its inception. So we just celebrated 20 years. And I think this is one of the points I'd like to make is that it takes a long time to build research capacity. It's not something that happens over a couple of years. It really takes, I think, decades. And the other overarching point I'd like to make is the foresight that the NIH had with this program to give us flexibility. So 23 states and Puerto Rico can be involved in the INBRE, in the IDEA programs. INBRE is one of them. And those states are very different in the trajectory of creating research capacity. And this flexibility is really important. And I thank NIH for that. In Idaho, we've tried to extend that flexibility to every institution that's involved in our network. As I said, we have every institution of higher education as part of the network in Idaho. So we involve community colleges, primarily undergraduate institutions, and research-intensive institutions in the network. Anyway, we try to give flexibility and autonomy to all locations. My first story is about a school called Lewis Clark State College. It's a primarily undergraduate institution with a couple thousand students, and it's in the northern part of the state of Idaho. We went to LCSC, the state school, every year with INBRE money, and asking them how would they like to build their research capacity, what kinds of programs would they like to engage in. And year after year, we were told that the faculty were not interested in research, although they understood that their students needed some experiential training, high impact research experiences. The faculty really were at that institution because they wanted to teach in a classroom or in a regular teaching laboratory. So what they wanted to do with the INBRE money was to purchase equipment. And although as the director, I had many misgivings about what they were saying they wanted to do, we still gave them the flexibility. This is what they wanted to do on their campus. So for several years, they purchased equipment, high quality equipment, GC mass specs, autoclaves, smaller equipment like plate count, spectrophotometers, pipetters, everything that you could imagine to enhance the equipment. And they modernized their teaching laboratories with this equipment and did bring very good STEM training to their students. But again, we had misgivings about the way they were using their money, but we gave them the flexibility. What happened, however, by providing that flexibility is that when they expanded their faculty in the biological sciences and chemistry, et cetera, in STEM disciplines, and when retirements happened and they were replacing their faculty, the new recruited faculty found themselves on this beautiful little campus that was very, very well equipped, way different than most primarily undergraduate institutions. So Lewis Clark was able to hire and attract amazingly high qualified faculty. For example, they hired people who had postdocs at Duke, people from Harvard who wanted to come and teach at this school because they could see that they could continue their research in a small way. It's primarily a teaching institution, but the equipment was there. Faculty from the University of California, Irvine as well. So the silver lining of giving that flexibility to Lewis Clark State College was that they brought in this excellent equipment and it really changed the culture on their campus. They brought in faculty who were interested in doing part of their job as research and providing research opportunities for their students. Among all of the primarily undergraduate institutions in Idaho, Lewis Clark this year has the highest number of publications, scientific publications that are co-authored, primarily driven by undergraduate students. I'm going to ask the moderator how I'm doing on time. Do I have time to tell another story or have I used my time?
You have about 2 minutes remaining. Please continue.
2 minutes. Okay. I'm going to choose another, maybe a little bit different take on things. In INBRE 2, so this was almost 10 years ago, we had a model where we chose a researcher at a primarily undergraduate institution or an emerging research institution at a VA medical center. We chose these 2 individuals as mentors, super mentors, and we asked them to find 4 or 5 faculty that were interested in their area of research and form a cohort around a theme. This is very different for most INBREs, but what we were doing is setting up a mini COBRE. And if you're familiar with the COBRE mechanism for funding, it creates a center rather than a network. Anyway, in INBRE at 2 primarily undergraduate institutions, or I'm sorry, a PUI, Boise State, and at the VA, we created these mini COBREs under the INBRE funding. Both of those super mentors, Julie Oxford and Denny Stevens, went on to write a successful COBRE on their campus. And I kind of liked that model, to have the INBRE be the mentor for upcoming COBREs and set up a center of excellence in a particular discipline. Okay, I have lots of other stories, but I know I'm out of time, so I'm sure I took up those 2 minutes. Thank you.
You did an excellent job, and we are very aware of how successful the EMBRI program at the University of Idaho has been, and it's a wonderful success story to share with today's participants. Thank you so much. I'm also going to thank Dr. Brown as well. Next, we will have a presentation and also a short talk by Dr. Luis Curbano. He is the program director for the Hispanic Serving Institutions Division of Human Resource Development for the National Science Foundation. He will be discussing how you can best use the NIH Virtual Seminar on Program Funding and Grants Administration to overcome some of your challenges. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Curbano to come onto video and come off of mute and join us.
So I know you're wondering why an NSF program officer is talking to you guys today. And that's because at a certain point in my career, I used to be one of you. And I used the NIH seminar to move my institution forward. I was responsible for organizing an officer-sponsored programs and obtaining support to assist faculty in obtaining extramural funding. And when I got the position, one of the first things that I did was to attend the regional seminar. And I attended some of the sessions that are similar to the ones that I'm going to be offering in soon. So I recommend that you look at the schedule and prepare for it. So basically, before attending the seminar, what I did and what I recommend that you do is to look at the strongest research areas at your institution or in your lab, and look at the needs of your institution or your lab. After that, try to match those needs to the NIH Institute, Center, or office that best aligns with your institution or your lab, and make an appointment with the program officers that are going to be attending the seminar. So make sure that you go in, register early, and try to make those appointments quickly because they fill up fast. During the seminar, make sure that you use the seminar to guide the professional development of the faculty at the institution or as a guide for your professional development. And go ahead and invite the speakers that you meet at the seminar to talk back at your institution, since not everybody can attend the seminar at the same time. Talk to the program officers, organize a seminar. They're more than willing to organize a seminar that is tailored to your organization, especially nowadays through Zoom. It's a lot easier. And also talk to the scientific review officers. They're always looking for individuals to volunteer as a reviewer. And that way you'll get an inside look at how the grants process works. And finally, try to identify sessions that are going to talk about mechanisms that can help your institution and that are tailored to your institution. For example, there are 15 sessions with institutional training grant sessions. After the seminar, I recommend that you stay in touch with the program officers, that you set up meetings with them so that you can discuss your ideas and the best funding mechanisms, as mechanisms are constantly changing. Also remain in touch with the scientific review officers. The NIH panels change constantly, so maybe you will talk to them in a couple of weeks and they say they don't have a space for you, but in 2 weeks or a month, they might have a space for you where you can come and help in a review panel. And finally, also go ahead and attend the council meetings, open sessions. At those open sessions, you can get an insight into what's coming up. So it will allow you to get ready for upcoming funding opportunities that they're presented at those council meetings. You should not attend the seminar just once. You should try to attend, if not yearly, every 2 years, as things change regularly at NIH. You see that we have, Form C, Form D, Form E, Form F. Every couple of years, you get a new form, you get a new biosketch, you get new requirements, new ways to submit grants. Also, the funding opportunities change constantly, and the requirements for those funding opportunities also change constantly. So you don't want to submit something not meeting the requirements or miss an opportunity that will be ideal for your institution. And if you don't stay current, at the end of the day, you're going to waste months of writing and your application is not going to go through. And that's just heartbreaking. Finally, I wanted to let you know that resubmission is key. You're going to submit the first time, and most likely you're not going to get funded. If you get funded, you're extremely lucky, but most people don't. And that's the way the system works. So make sure that you take into heart the comments of the reviewers and you work on them and you resubmit, because your chances of getting funded the second time are increasingly larger than the first. And since I'm now at the NSF, I also want to let you know something, that you should try to match funding from other agencies. When I was a faculty member, I did a lot of the infrastructure building through a Department of Education grant, and that allowed me to submit grants to NIH. So make sure that you look at different funding sources that will help you get to where you want to go. And with that, I can take any questions that you might have.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Carbano. We thank you for your service to the NIH and now also to the work that you're doing for NSF. We have breakout rooms for challenges with preparing to apply. Room 2 will be application review issues. Room 3 will be grant resubmission. And room 4 will be funding capacity building efforts. So at this time, we have Dr. Cecilia Wright-Brown, who is a program analyst, consultant for the NIH Office of Extramural Research. She will be sharing a case study on challenges with preparing to apply for a grant. And we will engage with her through the discussion and also chat using the raised hand feature. And so now I'll turn it over to Dr. Brown, and then we'll have next room 2, which would be review issues.
Well, let me say good afternoon to everyone who's on the East Coast. And for those who are not, it may still be morning. Good morning to you. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come to our session today. We're going to be discussing challenges with preparing to apply. I would like for this to be a candid conversation, and please feel free to chime in as appropriate. So let me go over the case study. So we have Dr. Blue at ABC University was emailed an announcement by the Department Chair of Biological Science for a biomedical research grant to support research training, which is a good thing. Currently, Dr. Blue teaches 4 courses, serves on 3 university committees, advises undergraduate and graduate students, and conducts research. So they have quite a load. With a busy schedule, Dr. Blue was able to convene a committee of his colleagues or her colleagues outlining ideas for the grant. The committee solicited for letters of support and began communicating with potential partners. The letters trickled in and yet partners failed to provide adequate information about their capabilities. Concerned the application wasn't strong enough, Dr. Blue consulted with his university's Office of Sponsored Programs. Unfortunately, Dr. Blue was told that he should seek advice from the committee or faculty with NSF grants. Dr. Blue submitted his grant or her grant application to the Office of Sponsored Programs for processing. Unfortunately, there was not significant time to process the grant. So this is a very good scenario. This is probably something that many of you may have experienced or heard about in your experiences. So let's talk a little bit about okay, I'm gonna mute myself. Are you at a R1, 2, or 3 institution by any chance, Wendy?
R2.
Okay. So outside of a lack of individuals in that particular area, at your respective institutions, If you go back to the case study, Dr. Blue had a number of university requirements, teaching requirements, research requirements, advising requirements. Do you find that this is a common practice at your university, so that is a barrier for you being able to spend more time to write grants or do research? I want a little bit of feedback from some of your thoughts on that. Lauren, Lauren, your hand is still up.
Did you want me to respond? This is
Yes,
Wendy
please.
again.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I keep going back and forth
Sorry.
on mute.
Okay. So yes, I think for certain faculty that is the case, and people here juggle quite a lot, as your case study shows.
So my experience has been, I've been faculty at an institution, and this particular case study was very near and dear to my heart because it is a constant struggle to manage your time, to be able to teach quality, administer quality education to students, and then to also find time to write grants. I'm going to step up. Or what has been your experience with collaborating with other colleagues and other universities? Does anyone want to talk about that? What's been your experience in that arena?
If you would like to share, you can come off of mute, raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you. What has been your experience with collaborating with colleagues at your institution or with colleagues at another institution?
So can you hear me? This is Irene Kenny.
Yes, we can.
So my experience with submitting NIH grants, one of the barriers is the realization that when we as a primary have 4 consortiums, that the PI doesn't realize the timeline. We have specific timelines to get our grants into our office, but in addition, I have to collect all the budgets and all the documents from the other consortiums who they themselves will have different restrictions. We missed one purely because one consortium, one institution said, no, you didn't meet our timeline, you didn't get our paperwork. And that's a shame because the PI has a great research project. So that's one of the barriers that I have dealt with in the past.
Okay. Noreen, I see that your hand is up as well.
Hi, yes. At one of our Canadian universities, and we are usually doing sub-awards with US institutes. And we've found that one of the barriers for us is, again, like the previous speaker stated, waiting for the documents from the primary institutes. We're lucky in our own university and within my own department as well. We have our own little research unit that supports our faculty. So we're farther ahead than a lot of people. But we find that that is sometimes a difficulty, all the back and forth between our institute and the US institute, and again, trying to meet those deadlines. Do you have any suggestions for that?
We're going to talk about strategies. That's the next topic. But let me go back to something that Irene mentioned. We have another session, I believe, Ms. Bray, that's going to talk about resubmission. So maybe some of the answers to some of those questions can be addressed in the resubmission. So back to what I believe was Noreen. Was it Nora Noreen that just made the comment? Okay.
Yes.
So let's move to our next item, which is strategies for overcoming barriers. So one of the strategies that I recall that I used to overcome barriers was simply to start early. Sometimes you don't have that luxury of doing that because you get the announcement and it's 2 months from now that it's due. But I would actually go out and search for announcements so that I could start early. That's just one suggestion that I have. Anyone else have any ideas or thoughts about strategies that you've used either through, you tried it, it didn't work, or it worked and it didn't work all the way? What are some of the things that you've done? I see Carolyn.
Hi. One of the things that we do across the INBRE network is in Idaho is that we teach the best practice to all of our faculty, that when you are thinking about going for a grant, you start with the paperwork. You really don't start with the science. You must start with the paperwork, because the paperwork is dependent on all of the people in your office of sponsored programs, all of the people that need to sign off and say that you can go after whatever money you're trying to go after. It's very rare that someone won't have the science down in time to meet an NIH deadline, but it is almost happens very often that what stops you from putting in your application is you don't have the paperwork. So that's a best practice that we tell all of our faculty. You begin with the budget, with the letters of support, with whatever you have to do. You start with that paperwork, and the science is the science is sometimes the easy part.
Okay, I think next was Cherie.
Yes, with my institution, in my experience, what we have done to overcome some of the barriers is we have partnered senior faculty with a young one. So then that way there's a mentor relationship, and that their science and their application gets reviewed on the science side. And then we have where we start the timeline on a simple R mechanism. We will start anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks prior to the due date, and then have a timeline goal set for each of the things to be due. If it's a more complex, we will start up until 4 or 5 months prior to that application due date.
Okay, excellent. Valerie, I believe you were next.
In my institution, in my past, the way I overcome the barriers, especially with collaborators, is I'll give them a fake deadline. Like, I know what the Office of Sponsored Program wants, but I'll tell them 2 weeks earlier that they really need it by that day, otherwise we can't go ahead. Then maybe I'll get it on time. Wow,
that's a different strategy, but it's can be very effective. I believe Widad is next. Am I pronouncing your first name wrong incorrectly? I apologize.
No problem. It's Widad. No worries. Perfectly fine. So I just have one comment with regards to starting the paperwork with them, or rather the budget. It's actually quite difficult sometimes to prepare a budget without the protocol, or at least the thought of what's going on. So you at minimum need an outline or something to that effect. So it doesn't always work to maybe put the to start the paperwork at the same time. And yes, I do exactly the same. I was going to suggest exactly what the speaker before me just said, where we give
a 2 week early deadline.
Yeah, because we know the cogs turn very slowly in our institution. So yeah, so I was going to suggest the same thing.
Before I move on, oh, do I have is my time up, Ms. Bray?
Your time is up, but I was going to say, if you can wrap up this section, that would be great. One thing amazing about having the technology, fellas, is that everyone gets to see what's going to happen in the other breakouts. And so we do have our next segment ready to go. So if you can wrap up this section, that would be great. Thank you, Dr. Cecilia Wright.
So the last area was building a network for future grant submissions. So given what we've heard about budget, planning in advance, mentorship, I think that how do you build a network? Some of what I heard rest in your institution helping you with that. outside of your institution, or well, let me say inside your institution and external, how do you build a network for future grant submissions? Any suggestions or thoughts, or I'll even say any success stories related to that?
Can I speak? This is
Sure.
Irene Kenny.
Sure.
So to build the network for future grant submissions, so I am on the NIH list. So I receive emails of certain fundees and I will target that to the specific faculty member
Wow.
to apply.
Excellent. Deborah, then Anna, and then Carolyn, and I think that's it, Ms. Bray, for us. So Deborah.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm at a small research institute, and I was gonna respond to the problems with getting these applications, the sub-proposals in from the sites. And I too set a deadline 2 weeks out from the date that it's due. So same thing, thanks.
Nuggets of knowledge that may be the best approach for, for submission. And then we have Anna, and then Carolyn.
Well, I guess this is more of a barrier than a strategy to overcome it. And I'm working on applying for an R15 for the first time, and no one at my institution has before. And so that adds a really big barrier that I don't think any of your strategies have really coped with when you don't have any mentors within your institution who can help you through any step of the process. It gets really difficult.
Sounds like maybe reaching out to your program officer. Is that an option, Ms. Bray, for them to reach out to the program officer?
It definitely is. You can reach out to a program officer. We also would recommend reaching out to someone else who has an R15 because you can get some general information and some specific information as well about what works, what doesn't work, and also collaborating or building a network of individuals who you know have similar grant awards. It's also a good way to enhance your own application when you are applying. So I would suggest those two strategies and approaches since you don't have mentoring or support for completing the grant right now. So those are options, the program officer or reaching out to other grantees who have received the award.
Okay. And I believe the last person is Carolyn.
Yes, in fact, and such a timely comment right before mine. What I was going to say is we've found that peer-to-peer mentoring is amazingly effective to form a network for grant submissions. So we have a faculty group, we have monthly meetings among junior investigators. And when one of them gets a grant, gets an R15, they share everything that it took to get that award. And it's very effective, more effective than having an older successful person try to tell a younger faculty member what they need to do in order to be successful. And yes, I love this idea. Find other people who have an R15. If you can hook into an INBRE network if you're from a state that is an IDEA state, or find an IDEA state near you, and there'll be a network of people that could help you with that R15. You can call me in Idaho. I'll help you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're building our network. Ms. Bray, my time is up.
Yes, it is. And we thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you with us. And I'm going to thank everyone who came off of mute and asked their question or shared their comment. Thank you so much, Dr. Cecilia Wright Brown. And next we will have our room 2 discussants talk about the case study on review issues. And we're going to give them about 10 minutes to go over it and also share amongst themselves, how might they approach this case study. And unfortunately, we won't have time for comments, but we will allow for our panel, our case study discussants to talk about the case study.
My name is Abigail Soyombo. I'm a program officer in NIMH, the National Institute of Mental Health. And I'm joined by 2 of my colleagues who are scientific review officers. So they bring in a lot of experience in this area, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So please, Dr. Davani first.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Beres Davani, and I'm a program director at NIGMS, National Institute for General Medical Sciences, and I used to be also a program director at NCI. But prior to that, as Abigail mentioned, I used to be a scientific review officer at NIH. So I have both experience as an SRO and the program director. And my portfolio includes a lot of institutional awards that focus on capacity building.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Davani. So Dr. McLaughlin, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Gerald McLaughlin. I've been in review at NIH since 2000. I started with NIAID and then I moved over as chief of review for NIDA, and I still do maybe 15 reviews a year. So I've seen a lot of types of reviews and overseen others doing them. I also was a grantee and a frequent reviewer when I was a professor at other places. So I have a fair amount of experience with different situations related to review.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I'll move on to the case study that we've been given. So here, Dr. Blue from ABC University has submitted an application for an NIH Research Grant Award, which was not awarded. And in reviewing the summary statement, these were the comments. So problems with the specific aims, being too ambitious, unfocused, unclear, limited aims, uncertain future. And these are common review comments, especially for a new applicant. Problems with significance of the research, the proposed research, problems with innovation. These two, significance and innovation, are extremely important areas of the application that should receive a lot of attention. And then problems with the approach, feasibility of the experiments are not demonstrated. So Dr. Blue had concerns and disagrees with the feedback. So decided to contact the SRO to discuss the feedback. So Dr. Davani, the applicant has come to you. What would be your suggestions? And I'll move on to the discussion points. So what conversation should occur between the applicant and the SRO? And also, how can the SRO best serve Dr. Blue? And what options does the applicant have regarding this application?
In general, my answer to your question would that when the review is over and when the summary statement is released, the point of contact switches from the SRO to program officer. So when the review is over, the day after, so Dr. Blue should contact program officer, not SRO. So this is the first thing. And my general recommendation would be first, Dr. Blue should read all the summary statements in details. I mean, just read carefully, not the first day that if he receives the summary statement at 9, so sending an email to program officer at 9:15 that I want to talk to you, it seems that he or she, Dr. Blue, has not read carefully. He's just upset. So he has to sit down, write the question, try to find out the major weaknesses or major strength of the application, and then engage with program officer in a constructive communication, asking question. And the main goal should be how I can improve my application for resubmission, or even it is worth or would be considered for like in future opportunities. So my main thing for PIs or principal investigator would be just brief, drink your coffee, write down your questions, and get engaged in a conversation with program officer with thinking how I can improve my application.
Thank you so much, Dr. Devani.
Thank you very much. Actually, that's a great input. The first contact after you receive your summary statement and you've gone through it, it's the program officer. And so let's speak to some of the myths out there regarding the peer review process. And I'll call on Dr. McLaughlin to help us with this. What are some general assumptions out there that are actually not true regarding the review process?
I think there's a common one, sort of inherent bias against, let's say, smaller institutions or people of one origin or diversity than another. Reviewers are very diligent. They take themselves in that role. We are here to evaluate in the role of blinded justice. And indeed, we usually use competitors doing the same sort of thing in the same discipline. So in a sense, especially if they're aiming at the same institute or the same type of FOA, they're essentially saying they're going to be taking some of the money that I might have taken. They take that role as a service to NIH to give us the role of a blinded justice, I often say, how good is this? And that is their job, to evaluate it relative to the FOA as written. Just as the applicant should have written that application responsive to the different parts of the FOA, and indeed listening to the review criteria. If it gets done perfectly with that assumption, will it be a significant advance? Are the investigators qualified? Do you have some evidence of understanding the field? Is their innovation? Do you have any new idea? Or are you doing what was done 20 years ago? The reviewers will know that. And is your approach sound? Do you know what you're going to do? And that's often the killer for people who are unfamiliar with essentially writing your lab protocols or your experimental protocols ahead of time and tell them that you're going to do it for this reason and that reason. And the environment, of course, is have you assembled enough to show that you have the machinery or the populations or the other expertise that does it. Those 5 things together give you the overall impact. It will make a major influence in the specialty. And that's a tough thing to do. It really is, but it's feasible if you have assembled the right team and have beaten through the ideas and things like that. You will get an evaluation with a score system of sort of 10 to somewhere where it's not discussed, but you will have the detailed written comments of the assigned written reviewers. And then, as they say, you hopefully can adjust to it or not. What the SRO kind of has a heart attack is if the applicant says there's an error of fact in the summary statement. Then if it's not an RFA, we re-review this sucker. If it's a major score-moving error of fact. Or if there's a conflict on the roster, the applicant can see the roster about 30 days ahead of time, although these days they use aggregated rosters. Oh my God, my ex-spouse says so-and-so is on that roster and they still don't like me. And that's when we, before the review, should be contacted. Yeah, your ex-spouse is R1 on that sucker. So that's the communication with the SRO tends to be before the review. And if it's something meaningful like that, or if it's an error of fact in the summary statement, then we'll discuss with program and decide what to do. And then the other comments, again, I consider just part of being an up-to-date scholar in your field. You know what's been done, where the gaps are, and how you can fill one of those gaps that will be important. And that's a tough standard, but that's the standard NIH uses.
That's great. Thank you so much. So I want to see if we can, both of you can explain the role of the scientific review officer during the review process. I know it's a long discussion, but just briefly summarize how the SRO tries to bring the review on track and monitors that it follows the policy or the NIH policy regarding the review process. Dr. Dabani first, and then Dr. McLaughlin.
I mean, the main responsibility of SRO is to bring to assemble a team with the right expertise to be able to provide a fair and objective and critical evaluation of each application. This would be helpful for us as a program, NIH, a scientific community, and also principal investigator. And one of the first things that SROs tell those selected reviewers that the whole idea to help NIH and PIs to understand and help us to find the most meritorious application. So this is the main message, and that the SROs communicate with SROs. And we always ask them, review an application the same way that you want your application will be reviewed. So you want that you be receiving detail with explanation why. And now back into the case study, and it was an innovation, it was written, the application was not innovative. I will probably, as if I was a SRO, I had gone to the reviewer and said, you should write more. What does it mean is not innovative? It's that incomplete sentence. You should tell it was not innovative because the same research was done previously in 2000 XYZ, because it's not very helpful for the PI. It doesn't help him. It doesn't help Dr. Blue. And as a program, it doesn't help me unless I have been in the room during the review and I hear the discussion, but unfortunately I cannot add anything to summary statement as a program. So this is another perspective that I wanted to and we always ask you, maybe now the attendees today maybe serve as a reviewer, and we expect them to provide a fair, detailed, true evaluation of application exactly the same way that they want to be their application be reviewed.
That's great. Thank you so much. Dr. McLaughlin?
I would just add that we basically follow Robert's Rules of Order and the figurehead and the actual scientific person running the meeting most of the time is the scientific chair. That's an important choice for the one. That person will call on them 1, 2, 3. The first reviewer describes what it is, who, what, when, where, why. Then they evaluate it. R2, R3 listen and adds additional comments. It's a more interesting review if the scores are like 1 to 8, then we have a major disagreement. And at the closure of the assigned reviews, they have the discussion and bang, 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 bang. Okay, the chair closes the discussion, asks for final scores of the assigned reviewers, anyone outside the range, and then they enter the score. And so it's basically an A, a 1, to a D minus minus, a 9. We have an F, not recommended for further consideration if they're really insulting. That's pretty rare, but you're going to get that A through F score, although we kind of cut it off at a C with the not discussed sometimes. So the actual process, as I say, was borrowed from Robert's Rules of Order, is run by the scientific chair. And that to me is the most important thing to choose in review, who the chair is, because they got to do what the SRO says, ask for that policies and things for from the SRO, but they are the eyes of the other committee. This is usually a monster in the field, and the others will defer to them and obey them. And so that's kind of how a review works. I also reiterate, go ahead and send your CV to all the SROs you can find. We are always looking. First-time reviewers, we usually make R3, the third speaker for 1 or 2, just to try them out. Can they write? Can they speak? Little things like that. Are there scores somewhere in the range of what a reasonable person would get? And after you've reviewed a few times, you become a valuable property to that SRO. You're an experienced reviewer, and we will overwork you if you let us. So, you know, conserve your time for this. It takes 20 to 40 hours to do a good review if you're fully assigned. So that's a commitment you have to usually make on evening and weekends, and you have to do it well.
Thank you very much for those comments. So Bray, I believe we're ready for the next session.
Yes, I want to thank all of you for sharing. You were phenomenal. One issue we wanted to make sure that we knew that you were going to bring it out is that you have to contact the program officer. We have several people who contact the scientific review officer. And we also, I appreciate that you shared what are the roles of these different individuals in our extramural areas that can provide support for our applicants. So sometimes you might be just speaking to the wrong person. So please don't give up. If you have questions, concerns about your grant, you're not getting the right question, maybe perhaps the next question would be, well, who do I need to speak to? Who else in NIH might be able to provide me with some information regarding my grant application, et cetera? And it's okay to do that. And I thank all three of you for supporting this event on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I want to tell people out there, don't be afraid to read through the summary statement very carefully and be prepared to resubmit and submit until you're awarded. Seek input from people out there, colleagues or NIH folks until you get your grant.
Very much so. Thank you. And so next we're going to have a brief discussion from room 3 on resubmission. But instead of doing a case study, we're going to allow for our moderator and also our discussant to share a brief presentation. Ms. Chen?
Thank you, Ms. Bray. Yes, that was a great transition into our next topic on grant resubmission. My name is Amanda Chin. I'm with the Office of Extramural Research here at the NIH, and I would just like to welcome Ms. Kathy Doyle-Grzek, who is here with us today to provide her experience and expertise on the grant resubmission process. Ms. Grzek is the Executive Director of the University of Kentucky Proposal Development Office, and I'd like to provide a chance for her to introduce herself a little bit further, and then I know she has prepared a presentation with her tips and strategies for how to navigate this process. So welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chen, for that welcome. And I am going to set up some slides here and just verify with you that you can see the slide set.
Yes, we can.
And these are very brief, but I basically wanted to say that, you know, I'm from the University of Kentucky, an R1 institution that is very committed to capacity building and to growing and expanding the research enterprise. But we are also committed to outreach to other institutions to do the same. And so I personally am involved with smaller institutions across the country, with the INBRE for the state. And all of these pointers that I'm going to share with you are derived from working with hundreds of faculty members who have been engaged in the resubmission process. And so with that, let me just lay out some suggestions for you. So I work with a lot of faculty members who don't get funded. And I want to say, when you get that summary statement, the first thing you want to do is take a deep breath, step back, allow yourself some time to digest it, allow yourself some time before you reach out to that program officer. And basically, if at first you don't succeed, recognize that you're in good company with well-funded PIs everywhere. It can really feel like you're the only one who got this summary statement. That first of all, the message you're not funded, but secondly, some pretty pointed criticisms that you're going to have to address as you move your research forward. But the truth is, every successful PI across this country, everywhere, goes through the same thing. And the most successful PIs on my campus who have lots of grant success will have plenty of rejected applications. The difference is that if they are well funded, they recognize that resubmission represents opportunity. And they work that NIH resubmission process through to success. They revise carefully and resubmit where appropriate. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about when that's appropriate. But I have to say, I support these people in developing proposal narrative. So I'm a sort of a precursor or pre-award step to the sponsored projects group. And I will say that resubmission applications are one of my favorites to work on. And I'll tell you why. If you look at NIH success rates in fiscal year 2020 for R01 equivalent grants, the first or original submission, which has a suffix of 01, had a 15.2% success rate. In the same year, the first resubmission with a suffix of 01A1 had a 32.1% success rate. So as was pointed out previously, your chances of getting funded are much higher in the resubmission. And so if you get discouraged, if you walk away from that project without examining whether you can massage it, retool it, then you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. Where you might have a much greater chance of succeeding is in that resubmission. So when my PIs that I work with come into my office, work on an original submission, they leave submitting that grant application, but also committed to the idea that they're probably going to have to resubmit and that they're preparing for a resubmission application. So recognize that grant seeking is most often an extended multi-submission process, not a one submission effort. And I'll just give you a few pointers on the practice of resubmission. So I get a lot of PIs who come to me and say, my application was not funded. How do I know if resubmitting is appropriate? And basically, we apply a very analytical strategy, one that embraces your reviews and your criticisms and views them constructively. So you put everything behind you in terms of disappointment or frustration, and you look at those comments as, what is the message to me on how to make this a better project? How can I change my proposal? And I think one of the most important things you can do is cultivate other sources of input. So when you get that summary statement, you don't have to share it with me, your chair, your dean, your colleagues, but I'll tell you that PIs are doing that. They are not trying to do this themselves. You really want to understand the importance of the introduction, that one-page document in a resubmission application that summarizes the substantial additions, deletions, and changes to the application. So how do we approach the NIH summary statement analytically? Basically, we all take a look at the overall impact score, which basically turns into your priority score for funding if your proposal was discussed at the study section meeting, and your individual criterion scores for significance, investigators, innovation, approach, environment, and importantly, the pattern of your scores. So for example, if your scores, perhaps you have some 2s and 3s in significance and innovation, but maybe a 6 or a 7 in approach, that might be preferable than the reverse, 6 or 7 in significance and innovation, because approach is the one section you can most likely fix. You can change your methods, you can change the experiments. Unless you just didn't pay enough attention to significance and innovation, it's much harder if reviewers don't feel that this is a significant project, an innovative project. There is, however, the possibility that you glossed over those sections and you can make a lot of changes, put a lot of effort in and change those. When you're reading that summary statement, instead of focusing on, your frustration that you're not funded or that you got certain criticisms, you really want to focus on the level to which your review conveys an interest or expectation of seeing the application again. So very often we see comments that are hard to take, the PI is disappointed in them, but they also convey that the reviewer is expecting this to come back in. And this can sort of give you a cue that resubmission is appropriate. So your goal is to think strategically about how your study can evolve in light of the review. So what does this all mean together? How can I take this forward? You study the language. Is any of the phrasing encouraging? We always look for green light phrasing. Are there strong positives, levels of enthusiasm about certain aspects? Are there indications of significance or strong impact? Then if there are other problems that offset that, the concerns that are raised, we feel like there's still a potential for this proposal to go forward. We identify each and every concern, and you approach those negatives with an attitude of willing change. Sometimes reviewers will give specific suggestions for change, which I view as like gold. If they're telling you, here's what's wrong with the experiments in aim 3, and they're saying, if you would do this instead, to me, they've provided the answer. They haven't just left you to figure it out yourself. And then you weigh all those comments against the individual criterion scores and those patterns. In the final analysis, how do you know if you should resubmit or not? Are you able to make the changes required? Are you willing to make the changes? Because in the end, a successful resubmission application is one in which, in most points, the applicant is saying yes to the reviewers whenever possible. I have just a few more slides here. Cultivate other sources of support. This has been covered well, but that program officer is critically important. They represent the funding institute. Their name is on your summary statement, and they can advise you on whether this is worth resubmission or not. The other people who are receiving the summary statement are those scientific colleagues and peers that have experience and can help you reshape, can make suggestions. Sometimes if you're a new investigator, you may need to bring in established investigators as project personnel. And then there could be other educated lay readers, and that's where people like my staff in my office come into play. Each resubmission application has a one-page introduction. This is a hugely important piece of the application. And what it is, a diplomatic tool to win friends. And I really stress that, win friends on the study section. So you say yes to the reviewers. I'm repeating myself here. You say yes to the reviewers whenever possible. It's also a set of well thought out responses in summary form. And it's a concise guide to each revision in the application. So if you say you fixed something and here's what you did, usually there's something else in the main body of the application, and you tell them where to find it. See figure such and such, see preliminary studies. What it isn't, a rebuttal. If people walk out of my office and say, I'm going to go write my rebuttal, I'm like, oh my gosh, because if you are rebutting, you are adopting a very difficult success strategy. Arguing is a difficult success strategy. I did work with one PI, a young one, putting in a first application, writing, it was actually her second, it was a resubmission. And every single item on the introduction was a rebuttal. And I said, but why are you even resubmitting? Because if you rebut it all, it's the same application you already put in that didn't get funded. You have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to move your proposal and your study forward. We stress that this introduction should be done with care, with a tone that's professional, diplomatic, not argumentative, not defensive, not overly apologetic. If you have an error, we regret the error, we regret the omission. And you approach this section really strategically, remembering these people helped you. These people gave you insights on how to make this a fundable project. And so you're going to act on those insights. And I will just close with one final slide by saying certain types of revisions are particularly advantageous. If you kept on working on that project after the submission went out the door and you have convincing new preliminary data, reviewers love preliminary data, and they may say you have not enough robust preliminary data. And you say, but I've been working on it. I now have it. I'm ready to apply it. You may have recently published on this area of research, and that can help you. You might have met some valuable collaborator. Any of these I have seen really markedly move a score, and particularly if those revisions have partially accomplished the project. So you might say, we now remove experiment, whatever, from aim 1 as we completed those studies and have submitted a manuscript, whatever. These all convey productivity and convey to that review panel that's going to look at your resubmission that you're serious about getting this project funded. So with that, I will turn it over for, if we have a minute or two for discussion.
You're muted, Ms. Bright, but yes, thank you so much, Ms. Grzek, for that. I really appreciate, very concrete strategies and your thoughts on, kind of how to approach the process. So that's wonderful. So how are we doing on time, Ms. Bright?
Well, it's time for us to go to break, but I'm also going to thank you as well. We will have the slide deck that Kathleen shared available for all of our registered participants. In fact, we will also have it up on the NIH's Virtual Seminar website as well for download. And I hope that it will be a significant resource to you, but invaluable also is a resource of having someone like Kathleen support your grant application and submission. So in your local area, if you can find others who do a similar service, we would definitely recommend it as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
So at this time, we have a segment on NIH opportunities. We will not be going into our breakout sessions. Instead, we're going to allow for our first concurrent session group with Dr. Tony Beck and Dr. Robert Rivers to join us shortly to introduce themselves and say a few words about opportunities related to training grants, training programs, faculty development. So I welcome Dr. Rivers and Dr. Beck. Immediately following this introduction, we're going to begin a short segment with our panel for session B. Good afternoon, Dr. Rivers.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share in this most important forum. Across the NIH, and particularly at our institute, the National Institutes of Diabetes, Digestive, and Kidney Diseases, we're extremely interested and extremely invested in ensuring that the next generation of biomedical researchers reflects the entire country and that your zip code is not a barrier to opportunity. And in that framework, one of the programs that I'd just like to share really quickly is the Short-Term Research Experience Program to Unlock Potential, which is focused for both high schoolers and undergraduates across the nation with the goal of providing a summer of research experiences and labs close to where people live, so that at the end they get a student that's in 11th or 12th grade has a better sense of, yeah, I really want to study biology, or I want to be a biomedical engineer, because we know that the faster individuals have an opportunity to get their hands involved in science or hit the streets and talk with community participants, they're going to have that hunger for doing science and getting involved in STEAM workforce. So just want to share that we're excited in some of the work and we're continuing to expand our opportunities in this space.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rivers. Dr. Beck.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're going to spotlight you in just a moment.
I have a confession, the video.
That's okay.
Is not working.
That's okay. We can hear your voice.
I have no PowerPoints.
No, you don't need any PowerPoints. We just want to hear about your program. Can you tell us a little bit about the SEPA program?
Well, good afternoon. It's a real opportunity and a pleasure to join this workshop. I manage the SEPA program, Science Education Partnership Award. And this is a program that was created in 1991 by the NIH to address the fact that then there was very little workforce diversity and opportunities for underrepresented minorities, rural communities, even girls back then. So the SEPA program is an R25 research education mechanism. And initially it was focused entirely on workforce diversity. In the mid-90s, Congress added a Science Center Museum component to increase public health literacy. But in general, it really targets students and teachers and families and communities where really the culture is not to think about a career in health and medicine. The program is an R25, as I mentioned, and it's a 5-year, $1.35 million award. So it has a wonderful opportunity not only to create some fantastic resources, but for those of you who are getting your career started, or those of you who are in management and corner offices, the SEPA program has got a great track record of jumpstarting early careers. We have a number, well over a dozen, maybe pushing 24 examples of faculty who started with a SEPA 10 or 15 years ago, and now they're departmental faculty. And we've created some schools of education and so on. SEPA is interesting and it's fun because the subject matter is anything the NIH funds, any kind of research. And it could target a disease like cancer, obesity. It could be specific, genetics, citizen science, and so on. And the populations that we look at are pre-K to grade 12. So it stops at grade 12, so no community college. But it's resources for the students and teachers. In many cases, the teachers in these underserved communities need not only training in STEM content, but also really experience in teaching. And if you want to find out about the SEPA program, there's a website. It's NIHSEPA1word.org. And currently the SEPA has 81 active projects. We also have a STEM SBIR STTR program with about 20 projects. And we represent all the US. Across the US, Alaska, Hawaii, and last year that we made awards to 2 awards in Puerto Rico. The funding announcement is a PAR 20-153. We have 1 receipt date per year. And what's good is a special emphasis panel. So the review panel are entirely folks from the SEPA community. They have active awards. And last year we had about 22 or 23 reviewers with a combined 260 years of SEPA funded expertise. So these people really know the STEM education field, or mobile laboratories, or museum projects. We're going to have a pre-submission webinar in May or June of next year. The application receipt date is July. So you get your scores in November, December, when we make the awards. And so what I like to tell folks is, if you're interested in this, study the funding announcement. Don't look at it, study it. Visit the SEPA website and look around. You can find projects of the target audience, or the content, or the type of potential applicant. In fact, this week I got an email from somebody who said, we're the city of X, are we eligible? Put your team together, come up with a plan, and then email to chat. So, and just for those of you who have some spare time next Monday, we're going to have a 90-minute webinar about SEPA. It's going to focus on the Science Center Museum projects, but we're going to cover a lot of the basic program contents. And again, you can find the details at the SEPA website. So I'm really looking forward to our discussion. And again, I'm so appreciative for the opportunity to visit.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Beck, and also Dr. Rivers. At this time, we're going to go to session B, our capacity building session for research, science, and investigation, led by Amanda Chin, and we're going to have a presentation by one of our panelists.
Yes, thank you for that. For our session on capacity building for research, science, and investigation, we have 2 of our NIH extramural staff here with us, Dr. Subedi and Dr. Aurora. So I'm going to provide an opportunity for them to both introduce themselves and provide their insights. And I know Dr. Aurora has a few slides prepared for us as well. So Dr. Subedi, would you like to begin with a brief introduction and your insights?
Thanks, Amanda. I'm Osim Subedi. I'm the Academic Innovation Lead within the Small Business Education and Entrepreneurial Development, or SEED office. That's quite a mouthful. We are in the Office of Extramural Research, and we're a relatively new office, and our mission is to coordinate the small business programs across the NIH, but also provide support to academics who are interested in taking their basic discoveries and ideas and turn it into a healthcare solution, like, products like drugs and devices and diagnostics and all of that. And so in that role, we fund a number of hubs and centers around the country that provide this proof of concept and feasibility funding and support, and entrepreneurs of education and training, and in taking that, idea from lab to the market. So I know Krishan is going to, I think, talk about some of the entrepreneurship hubs in the idea state. So I won't get into that, but I wanted to quickly say how we really value the importance of diversity in this entrepreneurship workforce, and we have a number of efforts in that regards. One of them being diversity supplement specifically focused on small businesses, with the idea of bringing into entrepreneurs from underrepresented groups and women and underrepresented groups into the entrepreneurship workforce. So anyone who has an award, small business award, is eligible to apply for that. We also have a number of other efforts, including a number of working groups within NIH, and in fact, a working group that is led and run by our hubs and centers that is looking into efforts to increase the diversity within this entrepreneurship population. And so very excited about this really important workshop, and I really encourage you all to attend the virtual seminar that is coming up, where we'll be talking about a lot of these topics in much more detail. And I'll pass it on to Krishan.
Thank you, Ashim. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, sir.
You can also see my slide, my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, everything's perfect.
Oh, good. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this pre-webinar for the capacity building. I have a few slides actually, and I'd like to sort of emphasize the IDEA program that I think you have heard from Dr. Caroline Bohach in the beginning. My name is Krishan Arora. I'm a branch chief in one of the branches in the Network and Development Program branch at the Division for Research Capacity Building at NIGMS. And I'll just start you to remind you with the NIH mission, which is listed here, which is kind of, I could break into two parts. With the two mission is two-part mission. First, to seek fundamental knowledge about the nature and behavior of living systems, and then application to translate that knowledge to enhance health, lengthen life, and reduce illness and disability. As you know, the NIH is a key driver of biomedical innovation and has strong commitment to facilitate and accelerate the translation of promising federally funded technologies, drugs, devices from the lab to market. These discoveries save lives, as you know, and also fuel economic growth and create jobs. Coming to the IDEA program, IDEA, as you know, it stands for Institutional Development Award, IDEA. The goal of this program is to build and strengthen research capacity and infrastructure for biomedical research, and to enhance geographical distribution of research funding in states that historically have received low level of funding from the National Institute of Health. As on this map shown in the blue, there are 23 states and Puerto Rico that are IDEA eligible states. To support program in these IDEA states, this is shown on this slide that we support a number of programs on the research capacity building area. But when I say research capacity, it encompasses a number of components. For example, research facilities that can include core labs, state-of-the-art equipment, and access to the research resources and technologies in the nearby institution or in the state. In addition to research facility, we also support faculty research development, faculty recruitment, release time for the research, mentoring, and network formation. You heard from Dr. Bohach about the INBRI program. So we fund also INBRI program under the IDEA program and under the IDEA umbrella. And faculty at the smaller institution, the PUIs and the community colleges, they get a release time for doing research. So we also support research training for the undergraduate students to provide them research experiences for graduate students and postdoc as well, and to build their career, which leads to increased workforce development in this state. So goal of this different aspects of the building research capacity is to conduct, so they can conduct research in biomedical area that can be basic, clinical, translational, or collaborative research. This slide also lists the website for our division, where you can find more information on the different programs which are supported under the IDEA umbrella, that are INBRI, COBRI, which is Center of Biomedical Research Excellence, and IDEA Clinical and Translational Research. In addition to research, we also support, as Ashim mentioned, to fill the gap in the entrepreneurship area. We support this program called Regional Technology Transfer Accelerator Hubs for IDEA State, which is to accelerate academic entrepreneurship in the biotech sectors with IDEA State, so that the research what they're doing, they can translate that into the marketplace that can be commercialized. To support that, we have been funded 3 years ago, this accelerator hubs in 4 hubs, in one each in the 4 idea regions, to kind of spur innovation and build a diverse and inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem in under-resourced states. And it's expected that this will create and amplify an ecosystem of resources and also best practices to help academics become successful entrepreneurs. And this will also, of course, in turn will lead to regional biotech-related jobs and economic activity in idea states. So through this, each hub, they provide training, mentoring, and consulting services in various aspects of business entrepreneurship, technology transfer, intellectual property, what it is, how you can talk to the technology transfer office in your institution, and other business skill sets that are needed to translate your discovery from bench to the market. So these hubs kind of fill that niche to at this institution in the idea states. Recently, we issued this, continue this effort for the biomedical entrepreneurship. We have issued this funding announcement, which is Idea Regional Entrepreneurship Development Program, or IRAD program. And we continue the same efforts in the entrepreneurship area, where a small business company in each of the idea state, they will partner with the academic institution to develop educational products to promote biomedical entrepreneurship, and also develop and strengthen the technology transfer programs at the institution. So application receipt date for this opportunity is January 5th, 2022. And we are also planning a pre-submission webinar on November 1st at 3 o'clock Eastern time, 3 to 4:30. So if you are interested, and from the idea state, would like to participate on the webinar, you're welcome. And the link is also included here. So with that, I'll stop here and we'll be happy to address any questions.
Thank you. And I see that the program contact is Dr. Devani, who we've already met today.
Yes, yeah, I can say that, yeah, Devani, actually, he's a program contact, he's in the same branch which I lead, So he will be the contact for this particular announcement for the program.
And you also did mention, but NIGMS, the National Institute of General Medical Sciences, has several programs for capacity building.
That's right.
So our team will share the website so that others can see what other opportunities lie at NIGMS.
Right. We also support the what they call NARCH program, Native American Research Center for Health, to build research capacity at a tribal organization to conduct biomedical research at the tribal reservations. So there are a number of capacity building programs that we have that are in our division of research capacity building. And you will be listening to another talk also, the SURE program, which Irina leads, I think in the next session. That's also capacity building at the less intensive institutions which are there.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you very much for sharing on today. And now we're going to have to move into our next segment, which is going to be a panel on contracting. And so the moderator is going to be Mr. Marcus Brownwig. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Our panel today is about contracting acquisitions. And we're going to be speaking with Mr. Bernie Salter Jr., who's the contracts officer at the National Institutes of Environmental Health Sciences, Ms. Annette Owings Scarborough, who is the NIH Small Business Program Manager in NIH's Office of Acquisition Management and Policy, and Ms. Veronica Godfrey, who's a biologist with reproductive endocrinology at the National Institutes of Environmental Health Sciences, as well as we'll be joined by Ms. Latanya Jones, who is the CEO of Phenomenal Management Partners and also a colleague of mine and a business partner. So with that being said, I first like to give the opportunity to always start with ladies first. And I'd like to ask Ms. Latanya Jones to give a few words or comments about her work with contracting and institutions of higher education, moreover, historically Black colleges and universities. So Ms. Jones, if you wouldn't mind, say a little bit about yourself, and in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and give you two preliminary questions up front that you can be thinking about. Talk a little bit about what it is you do and the impact it has. And in doing so, I would hope that you maybe answer these questions for our audience as well. And these questions are simply, what do you feel the greatest challenges that schools face in trying to develop their infrastructure as it relates to contracting? And do you feel that a more deliberate and targeted approach would be valuable in the establishment of that infrastructure related to contracting? So, Ms. Jones, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Marcus. So yes, I am LaTanya Jones, and I have been working with historically Black colleges and universities since 2012. I am an HBCU grad. My degree was in contract acquisition management, and therefore I decided to pursue a goal of ensuring that HBCUs get a seat at the table, if you will, in government contracting. You've asked two important questions. And one of the answers to the question is about infrastructure in the HBCUs. One of the weaknesses that I would see that we as HBCUs have is that we approach government contracting like we approach grants. And we have to be flexible in understanding what the contract is about and how to actually provide subject matter experts in the area of government contracts. For instance, the Federal Acquisition Regulation is one of the critical pieces in order to understand government contracts. Federal Acquisition Regulations is known as the Bible for government contracting. So having a good contract acquisition person will be number one thing that I would say. Also, as far as our pricing structure in government contracts for universities anywhere, whether it's an HBCU or a majority institution, is not essentially set up to go after government contracts. So it's important to have a cost accounting manager that understands the compliance for government contracts. And the second part of your question is, what can we do? What are the things that need to be done? The things that need to be done is that we need to understand that although government contracts are different than what we're approaching, we also need to know that we, as historically Black colleges and universities, we have the intellectual capability to go after these contracts. We just need to make sure that we build an infrastructure around it, and we make sure that we have the president and board of trustee buy-in. So that's probably my 5-minute spiel, Marcus, on what I believe that HBCU should do in pursuing government contracts.
Thank you so very much for sharing. All right, now we're going to go over to the gentleman on our panel to talk a little bit more about his experience and engagement being a contracts officer. Then we'll go from there to Miss Veronica Godfrey Robinson, and then we'll finish up with Miss Annette Owings Scarborough. But Mr. Salter, can you please speak to the good work that you're doing in terms of being a contract officer with the National Institutes of Health, and how do you engage with small businesses as well as engaging with HBCUs and institutions, any institution of higher education, moreover, HBCUs and minority serving institutions? And then if you wouldn't mind, if you have an opportunity and you can speak to this topic, round out your comments based around what type of contract opportunities may be upcoming that you could possibly foresee being accomplished by either HBCUs or, with this audience, HBCUs in consortium with some majority universities who have the R1, R2, R3 status. So Mr. Salter, if you will.
Excellent. Hey, well, thank you, Marcus, for having me. And first and foremost, I just want to say that I am a proud graduate of an HBCU, North Carolina Central University. I'm sorry, I'm actually having technical issues, so I've shut my camera off. Hopefully everyone can hear me and understand me, and I'm coming through clearly. But to answer your question, I'm a contracting officer / policy analyst here at the National Institutes of Environmental Health Sciences. So we support efforts, everything from R&D to just essentially operations that all are essentially driven toward the study and the engagement of how the environment affects public health. And to your question, in terms of how we're engaging small business and HBCUs, is right now we're actually at an interesting point in the evolution within our acquisitions office, in that we are building out the small business management component, in that we're taking a much more deliberate and a much more thoughtful approach toward engaging small business. And part of that build out is to assert some of that focus toward HBCUs as well. So we've taken an active approach in terms of engaging our programs to identify those opportunity areas that will, that are coming up in the future, that would elicit HBCU participation. And just at a high level, we don't have, I don't have specific requirements now because it is a work in progress and it is something that is forming. But in terms of the areas that we're looking at, we are looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion requirements and programs, whether it be in the context of consulting, studies, things of that nature that are relevant, I think, to it, you know, in various contexts with respect to HBCU participation. And we're also looking at animal studies, knowledge share, management requirements. And a lot of this is going to be predicated on some of the outreach that we engage in the form of our requests for information, some of our reaching out to HBCUs to really get a sense as to what the interest areas are and what areas are actually most conducive to that particular contingent. So all in all, just kind of punchlining all of that is we're just taking a much more active and deliberate role in building out our small business program. And with that, again, we are looking at HBCUs as being part of that, that program, so as to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to, one, elicit value for the government, obviously, but also beyond that, that we are working from a place of inclusion and diversity and equity, because obviously there's inherent value there in so many respects. So that's the high level. Marcus, hopefully I haven't gone beyond my time. I apologize for my camera and my technology, but hopefully that's it in a nutshell.
My apologies, I was on mute. Thank you so very much, Salter. No, you haven't. I think it's a very valuable information for universities to know that up and coming opportunities might lie out there for them, as well as some of the things you guys are doing to try to make for an even playing field in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And by you talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think it's a perfect segue for Ms. Veronica Godfrey Robinson to join us now and speak a little bit about some of the things that she's doing or has done over the course of her career and what's going on currently. And Veronica, I asked you to do this within context of speaking a little bit to us about how you engage with HBCUs and perhaps their research efforts, as well as how's your work in diversity and inclusion help you with educating institutions about opportunities that may lie within the National Institutes of Health. So, Ms. Veronica, if you please.
First of all, thank you for having me on this panel. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, wonderful.
Okay, great. So the way that I have, so in the past and all through my career, I'm a graduate of obviously of an HBCU, and I have always been taught to be involved in reach back to help others and to give them knowledge and information. So
please share what school you graduated from.
I graduated from North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro.
We have a North Carolina Central person here too. Interesting.
Yes, we know each other. It's all good.
Wonderful.
So I have been on both sides. I managed a contract lab for about 10 years, and I've also been in a twice. This is my second time around being in a research lab where I'm doing bench research. So I've had the kind of best of both worlds, I think. And so coming out of the School of Agriculture at A&T State University, I have made it a point to inform the school at the dean level and other faculty members of the programs that I know about at NIEHS, and to encourage them to get involved and try to connect them with other people at NIEHS, because I think that those relationships are really important. And one of the things that I'm kind of concerned about is the fact that enough communication and collaborations have not been done at the HBCUs. There has not been a concerted effort enough in all areas. You know, A&T is kind of unique because we have a School of Agriculture where few other schools do. And with that, everyone that's coming out of the School of Agriculture doesn't necessarily go to be a farmer or a veterinarian. I came directly out of A&T intending on doing research, animal research. That was my goal. So I really want to kind of spread the word to that this, the School of Ag in other universities as well can be a very good source of these kind of programs. And the other way that I your second question is, I reach out to the deans and other faculty members to let, as I mentioned earlier, to let them know of opportunities that are happening that I know about at NIH and NIEHS. And particularly when it comes to the summer programs for the students and any kind of job openings that are available, I make sure that I pass that information on to the people that I know there to try to increase, not only the minority presence at NIEHS, but the awesome opportunity of working at a federal agency. And I think that that's another thing that is not communicated enough. Everybody wants to go into, a lot of people want to go into private industry, but I think that there is a lot of missed opportunities in terms of collaborating and reaching out to letting people know how, what's the value of working at a federal agency. And I'll stop there.
So very much for sharing your experiences and all the wonderful things that you're doing to promote diversity and inclusion, as well as being a champion of programs that people may not traditionally know exist or have capacity within historically Black colleges and universities.
Yeah.
And
let me just say one more thing. I have to just say this. Is that farming is just, agriculture is not just for farmers anymore.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
All right, thank you. And now we have up Miss Annette Owings-Scarborough, who is a champion of diversity and inclusion and has worked, because I work with her constantly, daily actually, to create an environment whereby historically Black colleges and universities build an infrastructure in which they can achieve or be awarded federal contracts. She's been a visionary, and her office has been working on this effort for several years now. So I'd like to turn over to Ms. Annette. And Ms. Annette, if you wouldn't mind in your comments, would you please talk a little bit about the Path to Excellence and Innovation program at NIH and its goals? And then also, because we have businesses and schools on this in this audience, as you describe the program to them, you may want to let them know how they may be able to become a part of the program or at least receive information from the program in the future. So Ms. Owens-Scarborough, the floor is yours. You're on mute, ma'am. You're on mute. Ms. Scarborough, you're on mute. You're muted. We can't hear you. Ms. Scarborough, we cannot hear you. Please, could you please unmute your audio? You're being muted right now. We can't hear you.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you to Omar and to Ms. Bray for inviting us to participate this afternoon in this valuable session. I'm on the opposite side of the grants. I know a lot of you have the grant opportunities for all of the schools, including the historically Black colleges and universities and all other MSIs. But this afternoon, I want to talk to you about our office right here in the central part of your National Institutes of Health. I report to Ms. Diane Frazier, who's the head of contracting activity in the Office of the Director. But I want to talk to you about the Path to Excellence and Innovation. About 5 years ago, there was an executive order that was issued by the president that directed federal agencies to assist HBCUs in contracts, grants, and corporate agreements. So we established the Path to Excellence and Innovation program in our office. And I am also the NIH Small Business Program Manager. So we felt that that was a prime opportunity to match up HBCUs and small businesses to collaborate to be able to go after government contracting. And it was going to be a win-win because the small businesses already had the capability of pursuing opportunities in that particular area. Because most HBCUs know how to pursue the grant opportunities, but the acquisition arena is a little different on how they receive funding, but there is funding there for them. So again, as I said, it's a win-win situation because we use the HBCUs to team with the small businesses to go after opportunities, either as a prime contractor or a subcontractor. So they have diversity of being able to do both activities. But also, we have collaborated with the White House Initiative on HBCUs. We're working very closely with them. We're also working with other federal agencies such as Treasury and Energy. Bernie is one of the 10 operating divisions here at NIH that support all 27 institutes and centers in that acquisition arena. So we're now trying to work very closely with the 10 contract shops to determine if there's opportunities to ensure that we introduce and prepare our HBCUs to be successful in the acquisition arena. You heard from LaTanya. LaTanya is one of our contractors that we're working with here at NIH, and she is a subcontractor under Supreme Solution. And she is helping us to establish something called a TAC, a Technical Assistance Center. And in that Technical Assistance Center, we are proposing to assist HBCUs build their infrastructure. Currently, we just launched in May the second phase of the PEI, and it is called PEI 2.0. We have 21 HBCUs that applied and were selected to participate, as well as 42 small businesses that can be teaming partners with them. We are monitoring them through a database. We have webinars and seminars. LaTanya and her team are now establishing levels for the HBCUs because Veronica, A&T is right on top. They're one of our larger HBCUs that has acquisition experience already. We have several of our HBCUs. That have acquisition experience, but we have some that's in our PEI at this time that needs a little bit more guidance and assistance. So Mark has asked me to address how can HBCUs be a part of our PEI. Well, the current PEI activity is an 18-month opportunity. So we will be sending out soliciting applications for new HBCUs or continuing HBCUs that want to stay in the program to receive assistance. So I welcome anyone that has any questions. I'm in the Global, Annette Owen Scarborough at NIH, and I've learned a lot about some other small business initiatives, the one at NIGMS, and I will be reaching out to you because I think that we can do collaborations. We're working with the SEED program, we're working with SBIR, STTR. And lastly, on November the 10th, there will be a Small Business Industry Day via Zoom. The registration link is out. I will make sure that it will be forwarded to everybody that's participated today in the seminar. But again, thank you for this opportunity. And if you have any questions, you can always email me or give me a call. So thank you.
Thank you all very much for participating in the panel. I think a wealth of information was shared in the area of what universities and institutions can do to become contracts ready. So thank you all very much. I'll now turn it back over to Ms. Bray. Thank you, Ms. Bray, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brownwick, and also thank you for the panel that supported this discussion. Excellent. So at this time, I'm going to share with you presentations. We're going to share some presentations on partnerships, networks, and resources. We're coming to the end of today's seminar, but we wanted to give you a little bit of insight about how you can move even further in your process for your capacity building efforts through partnerships and through networks, and also for a genuine resource that we have, which is our upcoming virtual summit. So first, we're going to begin with a quick presentation by NIGMS's Support for Research Excellence SURE program, followed by the NIH Outreach and Technical Assistance Group, and lastly by our own Office of Extramural Research, Expanding Your Knowledge and Resources for the 2021 NIH Virtual Seminar. So I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Irene Kosanova.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And do you see my screen?
No, you can share screen now. Excellent. We see it coming up. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Irina Krasnova. I'm Program Director at the Division for Research Capacity Building, NIGMS, and I'm a Program Lead of SHORE program. SHORE stands for Support for Research Excellence. SHORE is one of the programs at the Division for Research Capacity Building, NIGMS. Our other programs include Institutional Development Award and Native American Research Centers for Health. These programs seek to enhance the research capacity at states that haven't received significant funding from NIH in the past, and to support research at under-resourced institutions that serve students from underrepresented groups and in tribal communities. So the mission of SHORE program specifically is to support research of the faculty at higher education institutions that receive limited NIH research funding and serve students from underrepresented groups. The goals of the SHORE program are to provide research grant support for faculty investigators, provide students with research opportunities, and to catalyze institutional research and enrich the research environment. SHORE is a limited competition program. Therefore, there are eligibility criteria for institutions to participate. Institution has to award biomedical science degrees to undergraduate and graduate students, to receive less than $6 million in NIH research project grants in the last 2 fiscal years. And the NIH research project grant funding can be calculated using NIH reporting. Institution has to enroll 25% or more of undergraduate students supported by Pell Grants. And this information can be found using Department of Education database. Or institution has to be a medical health professional school specifically founded to educate students from underrepresented groups. In addition, the institution that holds 20 or more of SHORE, SC1 and SC3 score awards is no longer eligible to submit SHORE applications, but we don't limit the number of SHORE first applications or awards per institution. When and if you think to submit SHORE application, please keep in mind that proposed projects open to research areas of all NIH institutes and centers. And if your project fits NIH mission, you may submit it as a SHORE application. SHORE program offers 2 types of awards to the faculty at the different stages of their research career. First is SHORE award, and here is a link to funding opportunity announcement. The application due date is May 26, 2022. There is 1 receipt date per year to submit SHORE application. SHORE award offers up to $100,000 in direct costs per year. It's up to 4 years and it is renewable. To be eligible for SHORE award, investigators must have a full-time tenure track or tenured faculty appointment at the applicant institution. Research assistant professors, research associates, research instructors, postdocs, adjunct and emeritus faculty are not eligible to apply. And only those investigators who are not PIs of NIH research project grants may apply for SHORE award. And SCORE, SHORE first and SHORE grantees can apply in the last year of their grants. So SHORE award is a good fit for faculty investigators that seek to conduct meritorious research and increase or maintain their research productivity. The applicants are expected to have preliminary data to support their research hypothesis. And I would like to note that several components are required on SHORE applications. The applicant must provide student involvement plan as a part of the research strategy. And student involvement plan must include approach to recruit diverse group of students, including students from underrepresented groups. Student involvement plan also has to include a strategy to involve and train students in conducting research. So we are a research capacity building division, so we require several attachments in the applications that are targeted specifically for research capacity. And attachment A, institutional letter, strategic plan for building research capacity and research excellence, has to be a letter from president Provost or Vice President for Research, and letter has to contain the institution's plan to strengthen research environment and develop research capacity. The letter may contain institutional plan to establish and strengthen research course, to purchase equipment for multi-PI use, organize scientific workshops and seminars, invite recognized speakers to give talk at institutional seminars, organize grant writing seminars and career development workshops for the faculty. Attachment B, institutional letter support for PI's research career development has to be from the department chair or dean, and it has to confirm that the time and effort requested by PI for the proposed project will be provided. The letter may contain additional details of institutional support for PI, including, for example, administrative support and matching funds. And attachment C, PI's current and pending support, has to contain information about PI's current and pending research and non-research support. I would like to note that all three attachments are required in the application, and if any of the attachments is missing, the application will be withdrawn prior to review. So would you please don't forget to include all the attachments. Our second award is Sure First Independent Research Award, or Sure First. Here is a link to funding opportunity announcement. The application due date is September 28, 2022. There is also one submission date per year to submit a Sure First application. Sure First offers up to $125,000 in direct costs per year for up to 4 years, and it is not renewable. To be eligible to apply for Sure First Award, the applicant also has to have a tenure track or tenured faculty appointment at the eligible institution. And the applicant must never have been a PI of any externally funded research or non-federal grants. So the PIs of prior research grants cannot apply for Sure First Award. It's just for new investigators. And this includes SCO grants. SCO PIs are not eligible to apply for Sure First Award. So being a collaborator, co-investigator, a consultant or sub-award recipient on a research grant, however, does not disqualify you from applying for Sure First Award. As long as you have not been a PI, you can apply. And also institutional startup funds and institutional internal grants do not disqualify you from applying for Sure First Award. You may apply. So Sure First Award is a good fit for investigators who are in the very beginning of their independent research career and who seek to generate preliminary data, test new ideas, and establish an independent research program. Several components are required on Sure First application, and I will go through those that are different between Sure and Sure First. PI must have a research advisor. Sure First is a mentored award, and research advisor has to be from a domestic institution who is a recognized expert in applicant's research area with a strong record of publications and funding. PI must devote at least 6 calendar months to Sure First research project, and if you cannot devote 6 calendar months because of teaching responsibilities, you may apply for Sure Award instead. The application also must have include student involvement plan and attachments A and B, institutional letters for strategic for building research capacity and career development, and support for PIs and research career development. But there are a few different attachments, 2 different attachments that are required on Sure First application. First is PI's research enhancement plan. That should explain how proposed project will help the PI to improve the research productivity, to establish an independent research program, and to compete for future research grants. So Sure First Award is non-renewable, and PI will have transitioned to other support. Advisors' research qualifications, track record of mentoring experience, and role in the project must also be described in the research enhancement plan. And attachment D, PI's prior, current, and pending support, has to include the information about the applicant's prior research and non-research support, in addition to current and pending support. So all 4 attachments are required. Please do not forget to include them, because if they are missing, we will unfortunately have to withdraw your application prior to review. However, preliminary data are not required on Sure First, and you may submit an application without preliminary data, but if you have preliminary data, obviously those are very helpful to reviewers, and if they are provided, they will be reviewed. With that,
Yeah, thank you so much. I was about to say, thank you. Just wrapped up right in time. Thank you, Dr. Casanova.
I would like to thank you for your attention. If you have specific questions about show program, I don't think we have time to answer questions, but please email me and we will start discussion of your application.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Casanova. At this time, we're going to ask Dr. Dawn Morales to share with us information about the technical assistance group that is established here through the National Institutes of Health.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brea. It's really great to be here. My name is Dawn Morales, and I serve as Chief for American Indian and Alaska Native Mental Health and Rural Mental Health at the National Institute of Mental Health. And I'm honored to be here today and get the chance to talk and listen to you all in my capacity as co-leader of the NIH Outreach and Technical Assistance Group. I'm a statistician and methodologist by training, and I went to college at a working class urban institution, one that would be called an MSI today. I went to an elite public university for my doctorate and an Ivy League school for my postdoc. And then for teaching, I went in reverse order. While I was a postdoc, I taught as an adjunct at an elite private liberal arts and Ivy League colleges, and eventually I became faculty at a school a lot like where I went to school, a working class rural MSI. And I taught 4 and 4, and I advised undergraduates, supervised graduate thesis work, served on university thesis committees, conducted research, and successfully competed for federal funding. Although to tell you the truth, it was just very hard, and I would try to do it again. I've been at NIH for about 6 years, and I've been working with my friend and colleague, Luis Cabana, who you heard from earlier today, to create an NIH online outreach workshop aimed at faculty and institutions who want to build capacity, focusing on institutions most likely to have students and faculty from underrepresented groups in biomedical research. And our third round of such an effort starts this Friday and continues on for an hour per week for 5 consecutive weeks. Each session has an optional 30-minute informal session following the initial hour. We're fortunate to have partnered this time with some scientists at Langston University who have an extensive network of researchers at historic Black colleges and universities, as well as a few tribal colleges, who are all interested in rehabilitation research broadly interpreted, but consistently from a minority health and health disparities perspective. If you'd like to learn more about the workshop that starts on Friday, I have shared the publicity flyer with the leadership of this meeting, and they will share it with attendees. If this Friday is a bit too sudden for you, then please write to me, Dawn.Morales. So that's DAWN.MORALES @NIH.gov. Or just Google American Indian Mental Health and NIH, and you'll get my webpage. And I'll put you on the list of people to be alerted about the next workshop when we have it scheduled in the spring. Also, if you have an idea for a promising theme with a built-in roster of likely participants, so for example, this rehabilitation research network of HBCUs and TCUs was just perfect, then I'd also like to hear from you about your idea. Our general philosophy is to emphasize information that will allow our registrants to be more savvy about how they navigate the NIH funding process, rather than emphasizing a long list of possible funding opportunities, although we definitely do include plenty of those. Myself and the others in the leadership of this effort have been both students and faculty at various minority-serving institutions, HBCUs, TCUs, and institutions that don't receive too much in the way of research funding. And we're aware of the strengths and challenges common at such institutions. Several of us have also spent some time at elite institutions and are aware of the practical knowledge about NIH funding processes that is conveyed through social networks of highly funded scientists at elite institutions. So our effort is really designed to convey that practical knowledge, but adjusted when appropriate for use in minority-serving institutions and institutions that are building research capacity. To give you just one example of our savvy advice, smaller institutions without too much in the way of federal funding should usually look at the R16 more closely over and above the R15 because the competition will be, it'll be much easier to land a successful application. And I wrote this before I knew Dr. Krasnova was going to precede me. So not only do you get this savvy advice, but you also get the chance to talk to program officials at several institutes and centers at NIH across the duration of the workshop in both a formal and an informal setting. So you get an idea of which institute or center might be the best fit for your science, as well as review officers and grants management specialists to learn a little bit more about review and budget. And with that, I pass the baton back to our ever capable Dr. Bray.
Thank you, Dr. Morales. And it's an excellent program. We're going to share the information about tomorrow's session immediately following. And now to close us out will be Ms. Cynthia Dreyer. She is going to also release us from today's seminar. So she's going to acknowledge everyone who's participated and also close us out and invite you to our extraordinary seminar that's coming up, which is the NIH Virtual Seminar. And thank you so much all for participating. Cynthia.
Hi, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, well, that was awesome. I feel like I've just had an hour and a half of building. I mean, it was just so wonderful to build up for this presentation. So now I have about 15 slides to show in 15 seconds, but I'm not gonna need it. I just want you to know that everything that we've been hearing today is all a part in some fashion of what's going to be provided in the NIH Virtual Seminar. We want to take what you heard today and just expand it. And so if you have faculty, if you've got, if you have postdocs, pre-docs, you've got anyone new to the grants.
Anyone new to the grants process, we welcome you to attend the seminar. Seminar will be held on November 1st through the 4th, and there are several tracks. So if you're working with your Office of Sponsored Programs and or you're an investigator, you can definitely register for this seminar and there will be information for you. In addition, there's information about our policy considerations and how actually the grant process works here at the NIH. And you'll be able to speak to several of our extramural program officers and our scientific review officers as well.
To be a part of this, it's 4 days, half days. A lot of what you've heard about, you're going to hear even more about budget building, guidance from NIH experts. It's Monday through Thursday, November 1st through the 4th. However, next week, we're actually going to start letting people, our public in on Monday to start building your agenda. Look at some of these great sessions, report, the small business program information, which you heard about, R15. There's just some great opportunities. And then we also have some after hours sessions as well that are going to be more discussion based and on Unite and planning your application. And we even heard about resubmission. And we're going to be having another forum there about that. So really a great opportunity for your staff, your pre-docs, postdocs, to learn more about the NIH grants process, policies, and programs. In addition, and I know I have a limited amount of time, but you also have the opportunity to meet with experts in 20-minute one-on-one expert opportunities for chats. This is video, text, audio. And then one of the greatest things besides the 50 sessions that we have is we've got 4 rooms of booths, all NIH booths. Ask an NIH review officer, ask a program officer, ask a training officer, ask an NIH other transaction expert. And so we've got that. We've got all of our funding ICs are going to be available. So it's really just going to be a really awesome opportunity. So next week we start where you can go in, you register, you can start building your agenda starting on Monday and planning those one-on-ones. And then the following week, all of our sessions kick off. And then the resources, which you can imagine are phenomenal. will be available for 30 days on the site.
We're going to thank and acknowledge all the support that we have from our NIH staff. In addition, for those external individuals who joined us to support this effort on today. And I would like to thank all of you for participating and hopefully for also registering for today's event. Omar?
Okay, yeah, just to follow up with Bray, we want to thank you all for joining us today. We really hope that you all are walking away with the wealth of knowledge and insights to take back to your institutions. This is a friendly reminder that the recording will be added to the capacity building website in the next 7 days. And those of you who have registered for the NIH Virtual Seminar, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And again, thank you so much for joining us, and you all take care and have a great rest of the day.